Let's kick off with this one from 8-Bit Voxel. Hi DF crew, with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle having implemented path tracing on PC while running on a branch of idTech 7 motor, are you confident the same treatment could be coming for Doom Dark Ages, possibly with an official idTech 8? Your thoughts on some additional RT enhancements we could see, or what could push the envelope even further in your opinion? Alex? Well, Alex isn't here. But don't worry, we've got opinions. We've also got this question from Peter. Indiana Jones reminded me how brilliant idTech is. It can clearly manage wide open spaces, has great scalability, and can support advanced ray tracing features. I'd love to see Microsoft/Bethesda license the engine and thus see more devs use it as an alternative to Unreal Engine. What are your thoughts on this? And indeed, do you think it's even viable? Interesting questions. John, let's tackle the first one about path tracing on Doom the Dark Ages. I think from my perspective, the question is, they're two very different games, right?
Yeah.
The thing about path tracing is the kind of temporal stability. You've got to have like really fast response on stuff like RTGI. And if you're in a sort of Twitch shooter like Doom, I'd worry it just wouldn't update quickly enough. What do you think?
I mean, I think there's certainly potential for them to implement it, but I'm with you on the concerns. And I don't know, but I feel like Doom Dark Ages could very possibly have the non-path traced ray trace lighting that we're seeing in Indiana Jones, given how fast it runs, right? It's really fast, which is very much in line with what they would want to deliver for Doom the Dark Ages, right? Because it needs to be fast for that game. So I feel like that's what we're getting a look at here. But additional RT enhancements, that's tricky. I'm really not confident that we would necessarily see that, because even though they are ultimately, they're both sharing some similar tech, they also kind of branch out and do their own thing. And Indiana Jones has it's a very different style of game with like a different purpose behind everything in it. And I could see them going for things that maybe id Software is like, no, this doesn't fit with what we're doing with Doom. Like for instance, I'm not even sure Indiana Jones uses the standard TAA solution that was developed for Doom Eternal, I guess. And before that, Doom 2016, sort of based on that. Like, could we see something different in actual Doom Dark Ages? I
Well,
think
RT Reflections, surely that wasn't in Indiana Jones, was it?
Nope. They replaced that with RTGI instead. But Dark Ages is also a game based on what we've seen from the trailer that's set in more like sort of like rough environments,
right,
where diffuse GI makes a lot of sense. Whereas Doom Eternal had a lot of shiny areas where like strong specular reflections would be welcome. So given the shift in theme and the tone of the levels, I feel like RTGI probably makes more sense there, but maybe on PC they'll allow both. I don't know. Or, a more advanced RTGI or something that's specifically on PC. There's just a lot of questions still that we just don't know.
Oliver, any thoughts?
I would expect they would probably ship the RTGI on consoles there, but skip the other ray tracing. That could potentially be the case. Or it could be the case they ship something like RT Reflections, but I would agree with John there that the need for diffuse GI coverage was probably more important and more integral to actually developing that game and making it look good across platforms without spending a ton of time baking out all that lighting. For the third-party question, I mean, I agree it sounds nice, but to make an engine adaptable for third parties, you might end up making the engine worse for your own purposes. And you can notice that even to do indie machine games basically forked idTech there. So even for their uses, it was apparently enough of a need there to actually make that engine work for themselves and not just rely on that main branch. Unreal is Unreal for a reason, and it's flexible for a reason, and it also has certain issues for potentially similar reasons. It's not going to work for every single game and every single developer in every single circumstance to have the same approach with their game engine. So I would just suggest possibly some caution there. We've seen problems certainly with many engines when developers have tried to extend, like Frostbite, for instance, to many different kinds of games. So it might not be the right solution.
And even idTech. The first Evil Within wasn't exactly a tech powerhouse.
Well, that was all forked from the idTech 5, like the Rage era of idTech, which was kind of like a dead end. Well, I mean, technically virtualized textures and all that, the texture atlas idea, that did pan out, but what the choices they made at the time for that specific revision of idTech made it not great in a lot of ways, because it was 100% static baked lighting everywhere, and even within, they kind of had to retrofit their own like dynamic lighting system in, and I think that kind of probably is the reason it runs as it does.
Yeah, I think we're talking about two very different use cases here. Unreal Engine is built from the ground up to be a middleware for developers, and it's designed to be
Yep.
accessible. It's kind of like the engine for everyone, if you like, whereas idTech is designed for
For id
for
games.
id and its affiliate studios,
Yeah,
the vast majority, if not all of which, are actually technologically really, really competent and they know what they're doing.
and I think id
Right.
just doesn't want to support it, right? Like that's
Yeah, the
the
whole
amount of
concept of
resources.
support. Yeah.
Too
The
much.
ability to turn an engine that's really good at certain things into an engine that's good / competent at everything is like a gigantic undertaking that I just don't think id Software have got any particular interest in doing. And it's quite interesting when you actually saw, there is the Starfield example, of course, where there's the story of id going in to help optimize the game. What they didn't do is say, okay, let's bring all across all of this stuff from idTech. That's
No,
just not what they did. They
no.
just basically went in there, found the areas where they thought they could add some optimizations and did so. And with relatively good results, I'd say. But they certainly didn't import, you know, idTech. That's just different engines, different use cases, different outcomes, really.